Wipe day. What is a wipe day? Are you expecting some toilet joke? Well, here you go. You take your progress and wipe your rear end with it. But wipe day refers to progress being reset. To start anew because the developers of a game did something so drastic, progress needs, well, wiped clean. It's most common in multiplayer games like Rust or Escape from Tarkov. But you as a player might also do this through games like Minecraft or Terraria. A wipe isn't like a new game plus or a prestige system like in Call of Duty or the Payday 2 Infamy system where you start at level 1 again with additional perks. It's a forceful reset where you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir. Feel free to have this video playing in a different tab as I talk about the wipe system, the perspectives between players and devs, and why I think this system is interesting. There will be visuals though because I find editing videos relaxing, so if you want to see that, I put those in there as well. So when referring to a wipe, multiplayer and single player games wipe for different reasons, but usually both also wipe for one same reason: to add new content. The best way to describe it is through a Venn diagram. Wipes may seem annoying at a glance, but in many multiplayer games with wipes, they're usually expected, sometimes scheduled even. Rust usually wipes weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly depending on the server, but all must wipe monthly for new content to be added. You do keep crafting recipes, but ultimately everyone's progress is fully wiped once the next month rolls around, at least for official or vanilla servers. Tarkov's wipes are a bit different by being based on when Battlestate Games wants to update, but the player base is given hints on when in advance. It's actually kind of refreshing because that early game grind here is usually unique to the early game, and this indirectly creates high replayability through how fun it is. What I mean by this is how you play the game at the start of the wipe is different from the middle or even end of the wipe, and it basically adds replayability to these parts because there is new content you cannot experience in the end game. You also know that the enemy has similar gear to you, so that makes engagements more even. This is especially useful for new players that can better learn the game because everything is fair. For multiplayer games like Rust or Tarkov, there's a progression ceiling in the end game, whereas you can only do so much. In Rust's case, you might have a huge clan with a bunch of AKs looting the same area over and over again or raiding everyone into oblivion. For Tarkov, it's maxing out your hideout, traders, and using the flea market. After a while though, it becomes boring because you and your friends have done basically everything the game has to offer. Newer players also have it more difficult as more experienced players have more gear. To put it simply, not everyone is on the same playing field, and there are select players that have monopoly on the entire gameplay loop. Certain games are more forgiving like Tarkov, but games like Rust make it near impossible for some players to get far because everyone else is established. Once wipe day comes, everyone is basically equal, with the only difference being skill and experience. For single player games, you are either forced to start again because of a new update, or choose when your wipe is. Okay, so the second part of that, let's say when Minecraft updates to a new version, I tend to create a new world with my progress being reset. I'm sure a lot of people do this as well. Because of this, I like to think of Minecraft as like the original wipe system. I actually talked to a friend while writing the script who disagreed with this, calling it a reset and not a wipe. He believes wipes are forced and not player driven, and I see his point. Me calling Minecraft the original wipe system may be stupid. However, there are sometimes so many drastic changes such as world generation, where it is better to start anew on a new world with nothing, and therefore, it is a wipe if the player so chooses. Sometimes a single player game is in development, and wipes need to be necessary because saves would get corrupted. New content, early game, overhauls, etc. I'm looking at you, Starbound. Starbound was one of those games in their beta that wiped progress multiple times because of how incompatible the updates were to the previous versions. It was one of those early access games I bought many years ago. I think I got it when it was the Angry Koala or maybe one of the giraffe phases. I don't know. It was back when you could summon the penguin boss like in Terraria instead of going to an arena for that. I missed that. But yeah, the game wiped on newer versions because old saves became incompatible. There's another thing I noticed a lot of games with a wipe have in common, and I think it's a very important thing to take note of. Developers do not want them in their game. This makes sense for single player games that are not like Minecraft, because you have that choice to stay on your world and experience the new content, or start anew and it would just be as fun. Likewise with Terraria, you can create a new world and keep your character. For beta games, this also makes sense. Again, Starbound. However, you wouldn't expect a game like Rust where Face Punch wanted it wipeless. I'm serious, that was their plan. Back when Rust had their old roadmap on their website, the developers wanted the game to be truly wipeless. Don't believe me? I went to the Wayback Machine to prove it. It's right there. And I'm going to link it in the description. Face Punch didn't really follow this roadmap though, but this shows that at one point they didn't want Rust to have wipes. I think their opinion on this has changed because over 3 years later, they're still doing monthly forced wipes to Rust. Wipes just became a feature players expect within the game. Developers like Battlestate Games though do not want Tarkov to have wipes. Nikita is one of the developers, and on a few streams before he has mentioned, and still does, that Tarkov's ultimate goal is to be wipeless. Their reasoning is a huge problem with the wipe system. Some developers do not want to work on a game forever. As a hobby, I like to tinker with the Unity engine and make games. I have a few canned projects on my PC, so I totally get Nikita's perspective. It's also probably the reason why Face Punch originally wanted a wipeless Rust, but unlike Battlestate, Face Punch I guess later embraced the concept. Working on the same project over and over again is tedious, but when you update the game over and over again with wipes, there's a chance the game's mechanics and player base may evolve around that. Guess what? It did. The player bases anticipate it because the end game is like a hard ceiling. It's like a trap. You have to keep updating and erasing player progress. Once your game's mechanics revolve around wipes, it's kind of hard to get out of it, and this seems to only apply to multiplayer games because you expect most single-player games to be finished at some point. Despite all of this, there are good things that come out of it for both players and developers. Players will come back for more, and the developers will have a form of stability, community, and promotability. Games with a wipe system always produce new content, so if a player goes on hiatus and comes back, they have a chance to experience something new to the game that they have played before. So if you buy a game with a wipe system, you as a player do not need to worry about the game drying out with content. A wipe system forces developers to keep adding stuff. I feel like I should also cover how players may feel pressured to keep up with everyone else. Say you don't play for a day and now you are at a disadvantage at PvP. From what it seems, the more frequent a wipe is alongside the pace to reach the endgame, the more unforgiving it is to take a break between wipes. That's just the nature of the beast. Sometimes you get super unlucky with that stuff, but you always have a chance to get back on your feet. The bow in Rust is enough to defeat a kitted player. The Makarov in Tarkov is enough to eliminate the most geared Chad, just one bullet between the eyes. The point is, you can still make up for that lost time with a proper skill, and if too much time has passes, you could always just start again with a clean slate. Although the wipe system is daunting for developers, they can use it to their advantage. It is a huge commitment to keep the player base there with needing to constantly add new content to a never-ending cycle. I understand it takes time, but if you keep bringing in stuff as a reason for players to keep playing, you have a stable system for your product. It's the gameplay loop that keeps on giving. Rust is a good model for this. Sometimes wipes release small content to build up for a wipe that has a massive addition or overhaul, so developers can add small things to prepare for something bigger. With this stable player base and system, developers can use their game to create a community that may want to play other games the developers will put out in the future. Battlestate Games can learn from this, to create side projects alongside their main game. They have like once in the past I think with Hired Ops, but if they want to work on different IPs, they have that opportunity. Face Punch is apparently doing this with their upcoming game Sandbox, which is also a spiritual successor to Gary's mod. In turn, I bet it breaks up monotony of working on the same game since like 2013. I don't know Face Punch's internal structure, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of the Rust developers are also working on Sandbox, since placeholder assets being used are from Rust. Players, do not be afraid to stick to one game by the devs over and over again. You can always come back and experience something new with a clean slate, just like everyone else. Developers, do what you gotta do to make your games fun, not just for players, but also yourselves. Work on new projects if that keeps you from being in a slump. You have a product with a system that keeps players coming back for more, and you can get away with smaller updates. Use it to promote your other games too. If you crave pizza and eat it for days, you're going to eventually be sick of it. There's so much potential with the wipe system, and I hope players, developers, and people new to the wipe system will all understand that this is a potentially beneficial ecosystem, even with its problems. If you want to see more content like this or want to get news on this RPG I have been working on, please leave a comment, a like or dislike, and subscribe. Producing content like this is a side project that keeps me from being burned out from making my game. Thank you, and have a great day. Rock on.